The City of Oakdale welcomes a new Community Development Director. He joins us on this edition of Oakdale Update. With years of experience in transportation planning for both Ramsey and Washington counties, Andrew Gitzlaff was recently hired as the new Community Development Director of Oakdale. And he's here to tell us about himself and plans for the city. Andrew, thanks for joining us on Oakdale Update.
Thanks for having me here this morning, Frank.
Okay, so let's start out. Tell us about yourself a little bit. Give us a little background of yourself, education and that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually a native of Wisconsin, but have lived approximately half my life now in Minnesota. So I came up here in 2000 for school at University of Minnesota. Really enjoyed learning about cities, and from there I got my degree. Started working in planning. Actually, I started working out on the east side primarily, city of Maplewood and city of Hugo. Worked as a consultant for a few years, and as you mentioned, started to work in transportation. So a little bit different of a take on planning, but thoroughly enjoyed that. Worked for both Washington and Ramsey County. Worked on a lot of transit projects, which were great because they focused on that intersect between where transit is and where the land uses and places you want to serve. So you're not really thinking about it as in the bubble. You're thinking about it as one really comprehensive.
When you say transit, are you talking highways, strictly highways, or what?
More like public transit, like light rail projects, bus rapid transit, regular route service, those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then, where have you been working? Where were your former jobs?
Those former jobs were at Washington County. I worked there for about 7 years. So one of the first projects, which is a really important one to Oakdale that I worked on, was the Gold Line BRT project. Back then it was called the Gateway Corridor. It was just really an idea. We worked on that project to bring it along, do the necessary studies and environmental clearance. And then when I went over to Ramsey County, I stayed involved. That was my next stopping point. I looked out for the projects and Ramsey County's financial contribution, made sure that our stations are serving the communities along the way. And it's pretty exciting because that project is now coming to fruition. I know we're going to talk about that later in the show, and it's going to bring a lot of benefit to Oakdale.
Mm-hmm. You mean that was a full-time job, just doing this transportation business? Full-time job? I mean, and especially in the planning stages. I mean, there wasn't much going on at that time, was there?
Not quite a full-time. When you're working for the county, you have other things too. You have people coming in for access to county roads, and you need to make sure you're reviewing them and that those are in compliance. You're working with a lot of your city and municipal partners about projects that they want to do and connections to be made, so that relationship part is really important. But yet the big projects do take a lot of staff, a lot of energy, and a lot of time to move those along.
Wow, that's pretty good. Okay, so what exactly does a community development person do? What's your job?
Yeah, I think a lot of my job is about connecting dots and about relationships. So if anybody's thinking about doing something in the city, whether it's expanding a business, a new development, where to move, where to locate, you're going to have some sort of interaction with the city, but you're especially going to have some more interaction with the community development department. So we'll look at pretty much any aspect of a site plan, per se. From a concept and idea, we'd want to come in and talk with you first, to if you need any approvals from planning commission or city council, help you work through that process. Sometimes those involve public hearings and public comment, and we want to make sure that any input from members of the community is taken into account and that the city council has all that information before they make a decision. And then our work doesn't stop there. So community development also includes our building division that's run by our building official, and they're out there, doing the permits, whether that could be an expansion or a deck at your house, or these larger projects like Willowbrook or the Forefront that we'll be talking about a little bit later. They're out there doing inspections and staying busy in the field.
Okay, let's go back to that Ramsey Regional Rail Authority. You were involved with that, correct?
Yes.
Okay, what is that? Where's the rail? Where are we talking about?
And so Rail Authority is basically, it's Ramsey County. Each county has the ability under state statute to form their own rail authority, and that allows an additional levy. So if you look at your tax bill, Washington County has one too. There's a line item for levy, but essentially still a county employee. At Ramsey County, I again focused on some of these bigger projects. I focused on the Gold Line project. As mentioned before, I also was the former project manager for the Purple Line transit project from St. Paul up to White Bear Lake. I worked on some freight rail studies too, where we were trying to unweave some bottlenecks down in south side of St. Paul, where all the class
train tracks you're talking about?
Train tracks, yep, railroads.
So you had to work with the Northern Pacific and that kind of thing?
Yeah, Canadian Pacific, Burlington Northern, Santa Fe, Union Pacific, yeah. Yep, we worked with them.
Were they amiable to working with them? I mean,
well, you have to understand with railroads, it's kind of like you're working, within their house, and when you're proposing to do things, you're proposing a remodeling project essentially on their property and their land. So
absolutely.
You have to be respectful of that, but there are some interest in running more passenger trains along freight lines and to Union Depot, and think that can really benefit, not just the city of St. Paul, but the county and our overall region. So those are some of the things that I worked on, that regional perspective, which is great to come to Oakdale because even though we have one freight line through here, but just thinking of that regionally, how we connect to a bigger system helps out, especially when we have meetings with like our partners at the Minnesota Department of Transportation or things that the Met Council is trying to do. It helps to see how we fit into that overall system and how we can benefit the most from it.
So and you did this in Washington County too, then, correct?
Yes, correct. So I started in Washington County. My job was a little bit similar in Ramsey County, but obviously a much bigger county, more urbanized. Some of the issues and the needs are out there a little bit greater. But yeah, spent about 12, 13 years between those two jobs. Focus on the transportation side of it and moving people to where they need to go.
That's interesting. So your specialty is transportation then, huh?
Yeah, I would say so, but one of the things I've learned just a couple months into the new job is I did start off in planning and land use, and I mentioned working for those cities on the east side before, Maplewood and Hugo, and you don't forget any of it. You don't forget how to be a day-to-day city planner, and it's enjoyable. It's nice to be able to. There's some things that I forgot that I really enjoyed about it, by like helping people through the process of wanting to expand, and maybe they need some old right-of-way vacated. It's really enjoyable process, or seeing things happen and go through in a much quicker timeline. So I've enjoyed it, and the like I said, the skill set, it comes back. It's a part of the brain that's been dormant for 10, 12 years.
Good deal.
But it's right there.
Good deal. Hey, what were some of your other jobs? I guess I forgot to ask you that.
Yeah, like I said, city planning. I worked as a consultant at Landform for 2.5 years.
What's a Landform?
Landform's a civil design, engineering, architecture firm. So basically what we did is we did things like comprehensive plans for cities, design guidelines for downtown areas. We actually served as the interim city planner in a few locations too, for cities that were going through a transition period.
Were you involved with Lake Elmo by any chance in their transition?
I wasn't involved in Lake Elmo. This would have been earlier than that.
Oh, okay. All right, anyway, all right, let's talk about a couple of the things happening in Oakdale. And I know I talked to the mayor about this the last time I interviewed him, but I just want to go see if there's any updates on any of this. So the Forefront Technology Office campus, which is the former Imation building, what's anything cooking there?
Yeah, there's a lot of plans to what we would call the outlots. So the area there's been the main building, and that's been successfully converted into a technology and incubator campus that has over 1,000 employees at it. And now they're looking at developing those outlots. And the outlots that are on the western side of the site, closer to 94, the city's already gone through a process to re-guide that area for mixed use and industrial. And that's going to allow for a 200,000 square foot office warehouse building to be built.
Unbelievable.
And then now they're talking to us about the southern end of the site and wanting to do more of a mixing of uses. So potentially even some residential, a hotel use, some retail associated with that. These are great because they help to activate the area, not just 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, but 18 hours a day, 6-7 days a week with activity. And we're always talking about in Oakdale, we wanting that retail and restaurant component, and a great way to get that is rooftops. That's what the private market's looking at. So the development that happens there from the residential leads to a lot of other private investments and these other uses that are amenities for the
the Larson family that owns that Emation building, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I remember interviewing him about this years ago. But he felt that was the best investment I think he's ever made in his life, and he got it for dirt cheap too. And that was his biggest impression. And he told me they put that deal together in a month, and we're talking millions of dollars worth of borrowing and all that. He put it together, but look at the potential. And he said the land alone is worth twice as what he paid for it. And look at what he's doing with it too, correct?
Yeah, it's really fortunate because there's a lot of other office space where, at large campuses in suburban areas that either people have gone remote or they've moved back into the city and sit vacant.
Sure.
And the ability of that particular site to be repurposed in such a quick fashion.
Right.
We didn't have State Farm like in Woodbury that sat vacant for many years until it was really, yes, we have to do something different there.
Absolutely.
So that realization happened fast, and the developer was able to move quickly, and the city worked with them to make that happen, and it really is setting up nice for the future.
Well, they're good people too, though. Are good to work with, aren't they?
Great. Yeah, I've interacted with them just a little bit thus far, and yeah, we've had a good relationship there.
Okay. So the Gold Line bus rapid transit. That's a 10-mile. Well, you tell us about it. Tell us about that, and this has got to be right up your alley. Huh?
Yeah. So Gold Line bus rapid transit is a 10-mile project, St. Paul to Woodbury. Travels not on 94, but just north of it along the Hudson Boulevard frontage road. And in Oakdale, we've got 2 stations. We've got one at Greenway, which is over by the landfall community, and another one at Helmo Station and 4th Street. And what's great about this is it's not just a regular, bus on the street type service. A lot of that line is going to be operating within its own lane or its own roadway, which allows quicker travel times, but also more consistent travel times. You're not waiting for traffic, like you would on a normal city street. But from the development side, one of the things that's attractive about that is when you have pavement that's just for the transit line, you have a dedicated station for it. That's a permanent investment that is being made by the public sector, and the private sector sees that as more secure, and then it helps to drive other private development around that. And particularly at the Helmo station, we've already seen that happen. We've already had interest at that station and projects that have either been approved or that are in pending approval in the process right now along those transit lines. And that'll really help because it'll provide a service for people to get to where they need to go, but also allows growing the tax base too, which is really important to have that new investment and new development and growth.
Okay, so is this land pretty well virgin right now? There's no houses there or anything that you have to go take, is there?
So at the Helmo station, the land is vacant. There was an old business park proposal that somewhat got half built out about 10, 15 years ago. So there is, you could say, a blank slate there. There's a lot of room to work with. There's a lot of public investments. There's utilities and pipelines and things like that to pay attention to. But there is an opportunity to really create something unique at the station. Think about that. You're coming in on the bus, and your first impression of Oakdale is a nice station with a restaurant across the street, public park area, I think that's going to be a really great amenity for the city. The other station at Greenway is right now is developed. There are some vacant parcels that is part of that, and that's why the city's done things like the station area planning, where there isn't any taking of homes or things like that, but it plans it out for the future as the market changes, as the transit station comes in, that it gives the framework and the opportunity that if somebody wanted to do something different, if someone wanted to sell or compile, they could do those things to help to develop a project at that station.
You know what, this transit line, I have a question. I've always wondered about this. Would somebody who lives up at the north end of Oakdale drive all the way down and jump on a bus down at the south end to go downtown or wherever it's going to go? Would they do that? I mean, isn't it more convenient to drive into town rather than take a bus?
Well, from the city's perspective, we want to make sure that we're going to give those options to people if they choose and to make it as convenient as possible. So the routes can only go, one way. There's not 8 routes. There's only one Gold Line project.
Absolutely, I understand.
So one of the things that we'll do at the city end is make sure that any bus service that's out there today, can we connect it better to those stations so you have easier transfers. Another thing too is the Helmo station will have a park and ride component with it, and I think that's really important for a city like Oakdale to be able to have a location. If you want to do that, you want to go downtown for the Saints game, you don't want to deal with the parking or the hassle, or maybe you want to have an extra drink down there or whatnot, or stay later. You have an option to get you back to Oakdale.
Good. Okay. All right. Let me ask you about the home furniture building. They're really going great on that building, aren't they? What's anything more cooking there? Any more possible tenants?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on it. They're out there. They've been building all winter, so they're
fabulous.
Trying to get that facility up and running. I think one of the really unique things about that project, and when they went through and worked with the city, we were able to update the parking requirements for furniture stores, which are quite dated and requiring more parking than really what's needed or what they as a business feel is needed. So by reducing that parking requirement, instead of all this extra asphalt space, it actually created another development parcel, and that's where the Animal Recovery Veteran Hospital is being built out there too. So that's able to be done. We don't have to look at new greenfield areas and tear down new trees for that. It's replacing parking with another very important use for the community.
Yeah, it's boy, they're really going great guns on that building, aren't they?
Yeah, it's keeping our inspectors busy. They're out there, almost every day of the week.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's good. And it is a nice looking building so far. I mean, it's still under construction, but it's going to be a beauty, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it really will be a nice addition. And again, this is another great example of buildings like a movie theater that don't have a lot of additional purposes, but being very fortunate to have some good partnerships and conversations to be able to get home furniture to come on up, and the timing was right that able to transition really well into another user that'll be paying tax dollars to in the city.
Sure, absolutely. I want to ask you, go back to this park and ride. Now, the one at Guardian Angels Church, okay, is that going to be tied into the bus line at all?
Yeah, so that's my understanding is that park and ride is still going to serve service to Minneapolis as well as to St. Paul. So it's primarily a Minneapolis direct route.
Oh, okay.
So it is separate, location there, but it does serve a different market, different need than what.
So that's going to still be in use then?
My understanding is they still got a lease with Guardian Angels there that for the foreseeable future they'll provide that service to Minneapolis, and that's really going to be the better. If you're going to that side of town, that's going to be your service. If you're going to St. Paul, you've got the frequent type of service to take the Gold Line.
And according to the paper here, just yesterday, today's Monday and Sunday's paper, a lot of the businesses are opening up again downtown, and so we're going to see those buses being used again, I assume, right?
Yeah, I think then you've got gas prices going up right now too. That you'll see a return to some of that service, and that's something we're still hearing about that from residents in Oakdale about the needs for better transit service in the community, and that's something that we'll continue to look at and talk with our other agency partners over there to make sure that as the economy recovers, there's travel options.
Yep. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, as you know, I'm on the EDC Commission, Economic Development Commission, for our people that don't know what that is, and you're the liaison with the city. So last week we talked about potential new transportation in the I-94, 694 corridors, the Cloverleaf by 94, 694, and another one, and we'll get into that, is the redoing Century Avenue,
Sure.
120.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start out the interchange study. Tell me about that. What goes into a study first? Let's start with that.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, any planning study, the first thing you're going to want to do is try to understand what the need is. So that's these studies are led by MnDOT, so they have their own process that comes as part of it. But get the data out there. What's the volumes now? What are they projected to be in the future? Where are the issues? Where are the bottlenecks? And then after that, you want to figure out what are your goals. Are you trying to move as many people as possible? Are you trying to provide access at different locations, or are you trying to, accommodate other, regional growth and objectives? And after you've got those established, and typically you have public engagement that's occurring to help you get input on what those goals are, then you start coming up with solutions. And some of those solutions can be near-term fixes, like maybe adding another auxiliary lane, or some of them are bigger solutions, like what are called those flyover ramps, that instead of going through the Cloverleaf, you're able to, just fly over the top and get to your destination. But
Sure.
that's also more expensive, and money needs to come from somewhere. So that's typically where these studies end off, is some sort of implementation plan, and then it's really up to the different entities, the funding sources, the councils or the DOTs to figure out prioritization and how those projects can get done.
You know what, I'm going to go back up a little bit. I mentioned that EDC, and at our meeting last week, we talked about getting a retention program. You want to touch lightly on that and just tell people what that retention program is and what we plan on doing?
Absolutely. And just the EDC, the Economic Development Commission, it really is a great group of volunteers to work with. So if you're thinking about that from a bigger perspective, they're almost the eyes and ears of the council when it comes to
Sure.
business relationships and different economic development activities, because you've got a diverse group of people that have skills in baking and finance and development, business owners, that can really be a good expertise for the city council to weigh on before making any decisions. And this is one, the business retention is one that we've been talking about at EDC, because we want to get their input on it. The idea is that we're going to partner with the Oakdale Area Chamber with some resources as well from the St. Paul Area Chamber, and go out and do a certain number of business visits each year. And the idea behind that is, we want to go and make sure that we have somebody from staff, an elected official, another business, to just talk with people and see what their needs are, what are the issues that are out there, figure out where the city can help. There's a lot of programs that are available at the county and the state level that we can help to connect the dots to. We can also be a resource. Say you're looking to expand and add an addition, but you don't know about what's a conditional use permit? What does that mean?
Sure.
What is a site plan? We can walk you through that and help with it. And some of it is just connecting a face to the city and who
Exactly
you can come
right,
to
yeah.
talk to and
Yeah,
know with
yeah.
that. So we're working through that right now. One of the key areas before launching this, we want to make sure that we're being strategic on is that you can only visit so many businesses. There's 600 businesses
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Oakdale, and we're talking about a couple dozen visits per year. So
Yeah.
how can you visit and have it be representative of broader businesses in the community? Such as at that EDC meeting, there was suggestions. Well, maybe we go to the top 5 employers. That might be a good way to go. Or maybe we focus on businesses impacted the hardest by COVID-19, like restaurants. Or what else was it? Women-owned or minority-owned businesses
Sure.
have their own unique challenges, and being
Sure.
able to go out and talk with them. So we want to make sure we're getting the visits right and getting a good target set. but we also want to make sure we're following up. That could be the worst thing that could happen is we go out and we talk with people, we understand their
And then don't
needs,
do
and they
anything
say-
about it.
and we
Yeah.
don't do anything.
Yeah.
So we got to follow up. We got to commit to that and make sure that we know that before we go out there, because the last thing we want to do is either harm an existing relationship or wreck something before we even have a chance to get it
Absolutely.
going.
Okay, so we're running low on time here,
All
but I
right.
just want to touch real quick on the news the other day. There was something about turning I-94 into a green space or some such. Does that make any sense to you at all? I mean, really?
Is this in St. Paul?
It was a 94, yes, it
Sure,
was.
yeah.
94, yeah.
Yeah,
94
over,
through St. Paul, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I think they're looking at
Putting the freeway underground or something.
Rice Street and Dale, sort of in that midpoint of the historic Rondo neighborhood. I think those things are they're really great initiatives if they're done and have the right support from the different areas. So if you have the community support, the transportation department, it serves a purpose, and then the numbers can pencil out economically. So those are done elsewhere in the country.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, even Duluth has one. They have more of a green space land bridge just north of
But
of
was it an
downtown.
old freeway that they turned into land space?
I'm not quite sure on that one, but I
Okay.
do know some of the other ones that have been done throughout the country. They're also called land bridges, is the term that's used. Have worked, have been successful. It's not something you're going to see out in Oakdale. Then we're more spread out. We're more about, how can we get
People moving.
and how can we get more crossings of
Yeah.
improved crossings of 694?
Yeah.
So like the new bridges that are going to come in as part of Gold Line, they're going to serve pedestrians and allow those
Sure.
movements as well too. And then 40th Street's another one the council's been talking about lately is with Willowbrook coming in. How do you get people across that?
That's going to be a big one, yeah. Okay, we got about 20 seconds left
All
here.
right.
I just want you to touch real quick on potential, because this is very important, redoing Highway 20 or doing something to 120. So you want to give us the problems and then what's the
Absolutely.
tentative solutions, but we only got about 20 seconds.
All
So-
right, the 20-second pitch. So it's a challenge. You've got a county line road, Washington and Ramsey County. You've got multiple cities that are part of it. Makes it hard to get everybody on the same vision for what that wants to be. MnDOT's leading the study. I think one of the big questions to answer is it about moving as many cars as possible, throughput, or is it about business, neighborhood access, making sure that road is usable for all, not just motorists, but bikes and pedestrians. So that's what I see coming out of this is more solutions that aren't widening the road significantly, but making sure that there is adequate space and safe space. There's safety hazards with people
Sure.
getting hurt out there. The study doesn't have any funding associated with it, so that's going to be a big piece of it even when it comes out. But it's always, one of that first steps is making sure that you have a good solid vision, a good solid plan, and you have the
Absolutely.
support for it.
Yeah.
Then you can get it done.
Yeah, and I remember, I think that used to be called County Road D or C, County Road, that was the original, and that was
Sure.
a dirt road, and I can remember that. Can you imagine that? That's how old I am.
And some crazy person said, let's pave it, right?
Let's pave it,
Yeah.
absolutely, and then, but they didn't allow for the growth and the, the houses and the,
Yeah.
and the traffic changes and all that. Anyway, Andrew, we're out of time, big time. My producer's giving me the word over here. But listen, I want to thank you, and I'm very happy to have you involved in Oakdale, and you seem to know what in the heck you're talking about. So I think we're going to be okay with you.
All right. Well, I thank you for that reassurance, Frank, and happy to be a resource for you and anybody else in the city if they're looking at doing something. Give us a
Absolutely.
call, and we're glad to help you out and set you on the right path.
Absolutely. Sounds good. That's all we have time for on this edition of Oakdale Update. Thanks for watching.